He talks a good game. He talks a good game. On the outside, he talks a good game.
Hello, welcome to On the Edson. So this is a full reaction to West Ham against Liverpool, yesterday, in Sunday, right? Losing 2-0. Obviously, ahead of the game, we had the really sad news that Billy Bonzo had died. Legends, the label legends is bandied about a lot, in football. Oh, he's a legend. But in terms of Billy Bonds, not only just for West Ham, but in the wider footballing world, he is an absolute legend. He's top of the top. But when you're talking about West Ham, he's right there, right at the top of the tree. And what he would have seen yesterday, I'm sure would have disappointed him beyond belief. Would have kind of made him kind of hold his head, and I don't know. It was a shameful performance yesterday, but not necessarily because West Ham were not trying at times. And it wasn't as if it was awful defending all the way through, because at times there were some elements of good defending and other times there was bad defending. And it wasn't as if that every single player let themselves down. Whilst a couple did, there were a couple of players, Potts, Fernandes, Magassa, I thought were doing reasonably well. I thought Mavropanos, in and out, he made a couple of mistakes, granted, but he also made a couple of really good clearances as well and tackles. So, it was indifferent for him. Wan-Bissaka was okay. I think Juve was in parts okay, but at the same time he couldn't put a cross in. Every single one of his crosses, I think, didn't go anywhere. And then you're talking about Wilson. Wilson was trying, but just nothing was coming to him, really. And then you're talking about Bowen and Paqueta, and neither of them did anything really of note. Yeah, Bowen had that shot. But in the second half, after Fulkrug did a little bit of decent work, actually, for once, and opened it up for Bowen to take a shot. But let's face it, we didn't really take it to them. We didn't really stand up tall. Each player didn't really take it upon themselves to say, let's drive forward. Let's get at them. I made it short earlier on. I said, look, West Ham essentially, they lack the killer instinct. And if there was ever a game that required that kind of killer instinct, that no mercy attitude, was against Liverpool. Now, we're not talking Liverpool, the great team here. We're talking to Liverpool, who are shambolic at the moment. And you could even tell against us, they weren't confident, they weren't great. And we just let them carry on as normal and build confidence. How is it that you can stand off them, set up defensively, not really have anything going forward, and your whole mindset of the coach, the manager, the coaches, the players, was just to sit back? Nothing was going forward. Did we have a shot on goal? If it was, nothing was on target. That Bowen effort, you could put in the Paqueta, hopeful shot, but that's about it. It was pitiful the way we're going up against Liverpool, who were really, really struggling. You got the most expensive player, hasn't been able to get a sniff all season. He comes up and a fine finish, no doubt. And he comes up against us. Then, we're holding out, and we're never really going for it. We're never really putting them under pressure. And you kind of wonder, is this, I keep on saying it repeatedly, is this what we've got to look forward to? When you've got a manager who cannot see what's in front of his eyes. It's not as if it's secret data here. We can all see what Liverpool have been playing for the last few weeks. We can all see how teams have been playing up against them. Everybody knows, every man and his dog, every pundit knows, you put Liverpool under pressure, they start to crumble quite quickly. Right now, there's a lot of lacking in confidence. And we just didn't do it. So if we're not doing it and we're just sitting back, then that's just going to invite them to come onto us and gain confidence. And that's exactly what they did. But by no stretch of the imagination were they, the finished article, were they a really good team to watch. In fact, it wasn't a real great game to watch. But the stark reality here is that we've got a manager who just will not grab an opportunity to go forward. Now, listen, if we're playing a team with a world 11, Mbappe up front, Messi, Ronaldo up front, Xavi, Iniesta, I don't know, Ferdinand and Vidic at the back, whoever your best 11 in the world, then you could say, okay, fine, you know what, let's play this defensively, see how we go. But even then, you still want options to go forward. If you don't score, you're never going to win a game. If you don't try and score, if you're never going to get into the final third and try and get a shot off on goal, it's never going to happen. The most you can ever hope for is a draw. So is this what we're saying? We're hopeful for a draw against a team that is rock bottom in confidence right now. Is that what we're up against? Is that what is this what we're paying our money for? This is what we're, tuning in for. This is what we're listening, we're making videos about, and we're watching videos about, and God knows whatever else. Is this it? That you got Liverpool, who beat us fair and square, that's got nothing on them, but we know that they're not the team that they were certainly last season. In fact, they're probably one of the worst performing teams in a long, long time. Certainly their run of losses, their run of form is the worst since, I don't know, since the 50s or something like that, before Shankly came along, right? Shankly had this famous saying. I can't remember the words exactly, but he basically said, football isn't a matter of life and death. It's a lot more important than that. And in the moment, it is the most important thing that you should be focused on as a player and as a manager. And looking at who you're playing against and looking how they're performing and looking how you set up. And this is it. Sport is just legalized war, right? That's all it is. It's legalized war. It's tactical war that you're not actually killing each other, but you're using tactical positioning to fight out battles against your opponents. That's what it's about. Instead of gladiators getting into the Colosseum and swording each other, you're getting teams against each other and having a duke out. And that's what it's about. But regardless of what you're doing, the elements are still there. You got to look at your opposition. You got to look at how they're feeling, their psychology, their strengths, their weaknesses, and so on and so forth. And this is what we had to do yesterday. We had to look at Liverpool and see they are vulnerable at the back, they're shaky in midfield, and they're not firing up front. So stop the ball getting to the strikers stop them getting any confidence, win the battle in midfield, and put pressure on them going forward, put pressure on their defence. And for Christ almighty, take shots on goal and make sure they're on target. Now, you would imagine that this is some kind of secret Da Vinci Code here that I'm talking about, or some kind of, cosmic knowledge that only the select elite in this world, the Illuminati are allowed to know about. But no, it isn't. This is plain as day. This is simple stuff. This is ABCs of football. This is, 1 and 1 is 2. 2 and 2 is 4. It's not some secret information here. You can just do this. But if you choose not to see what's in front of you, you choose to adopt a defensive posture in all your games, then basically you're just blind to whatever you're seeing in front of you. So partly it's the players. But it's mostly the manager again. It's mostly the manager saying, look, just keep it all in check. Just be solid first. And all that is good as long as you are counter-attacking and going forward with purpose and you're getting shots off on goal. But the way he set up was all lopsided. Okay, Somerville's he's injured still. Okay, but what are you doing? We're at the left side. You're having Magassa and Potts in there, and then Fernandes in there, but you got Paqueta doing, and we'll get on to Paqueta in a minute, and every man and his dog has had his 2 pennies worth on Paqueta already, I'm sure. But I've said this time and time again about Paqueta and Bowen as well, but especially Paqueta, just too inconsistent, doesn't produce enough. Regardless of what the potential is, regardless of, every now and again he shows great things, it's just not enough. Bowen has just not produced, enough in a long time. He's on a real low ebb now. Our defence is still very, very shaky. Yeah, great. Took out Kilman, put Mavropanos in. And he's still, we would, a lot of people saying, oh, he's our best defender. Hold on, he might be the best of a bad bunch. Doesn't make him, a great defender. We know there's a problem there. We know he switches off. We know there's an issue. He's coming back his first game against Liverpool. Guess what? He's going to make mistakes. I thought Potts, Magassa and Fernandes did all right, actually. Did all right. But when you're relying on players like Wan-Bissaka and Juve to get forward and put crosses in, then we've got to make sure that the crosses are relatively good quality. Potts, I've got to say, if we're singing the praises of Potts, a young kid, granted all that, but I'm not sure I saw him put a decent corner in. So we got to work on set plays, got to work on corners. You got to meet you got to beat the first man. You got to beat the near post. It was just too lopsided. It was just too lethargic. It wasn't just, there was no drive to go forward. And you can only imagine this is operating under instructions. But Bowen just wasn't there. We don't have strong leaders, regardless of captaincy, and I'll talk about that because I've mentioned that until I'm blue in the face already. But we don't have strong leaders in the middle of the park to get the players together and say, come on. We don't have that capacity to sniff out weakness, to sniff out where a team is struggling. We should be, as a team, as players, at least giving it a go. And if we lose 2-0 or 3-0, but we've given it a damn good go, then at least we can hold our heads high. At least the fan base will say, do you know what? We just weren't good enough today. We got to wait until January to get some players, but at least we tried. At least this is not about individual effort. This is about trying just with purpose to go forward and take it to the opposition. Stop them playing. We failed to stop them play for large portions of the game. We let them get a foothold. We let them get confidence. And we offered nothing going forward. This was worse than the Arsenal game in terms of going forward. And I was saying at that time, I said, look, this is unforgivable. And lots of people, I heard lots of people say, well, it's Arsenal. Yeah, it's all this. Bollocks. If you're offering nothing going forward, you've got nothing. You're going to lose regardless of who the opposition are. We had a team there who were conceivably just as bad, if not a little bit worse than us. In fact, confidence-wise, a lot worse than us. They were there for the taking. And we don't have that killer instinct. The manager doesn't have it within him to sniff out a weakness and say, let's capitalise on this. Let's go forward. Let's push on them. It doesn't mean that you have to be negligent in defence and just give up all defensive responsibilities. What this means is just go forward. and just go with strength and, and purpose. And we had none of that. But then we had key players that just didn't turn up. Again, Bowen didn't turn up. Paqueta didn't turn up. Then he goes and gets himself sent off. Like the petulant frigging child he is. I mean, come on. I mean, what are we saying here? How many excuses have we got to make for Paqueta and say, well, he's our best player. Oh, is he conceivably our best player? Oh, yeah, No, he's only our best player if he performs, if he delivers. There have been so many players throughout history who've had that potential, who almost delivered. But they never did. And then you went, oh, well, he's almost a good player. When he went on to another team, he was a great player. Yeah, it doesn't matter what he does when he goes on to another team. It's what he does for your team right in the moment. And he's been doing fuck all for too long. And then he's just come back from suspension. He missed the Bournemouth game. We drew that. We should have lost that game completely. He comes back and gets himself sent off. And he didn't even offer anything in the game either. Football is a simple game. But it takes dedication, it takes heart, and it takes desire, and it takes planning, and it takes tactical awareness to be able to see an opportunity. But I tell you what, more than anything, it's a mental game. And this is what they say about true professionals. The difference between successful professionals and professionals that don't quite make it, it's all up here. It's the mental game. It's the mental approach. If we had another manager who was more forward-thinking, I'm not saying, just give up everything, go out all out attack, but I'm saying a bit more forward-thinking, in fact, a lot more forward-thinking, we would say, do you know what, there's a great opportunity here. We can take it. And say what you like about Sean Dyche. I'm not saying that we should have ever employed Sean Dyche for 1 minute, right? But what I'm saying is he saw an opportunity with Nottingham Forest against Liverpool. He saw it, and by Christ, he took it. And stuffed them 3-0. Could have been 4. I think it could have been 5. So we don't have that. Now, again, this comes down to the ownership, right? Repeatedly getting managers who just do not play on the front foot. They just do not see opportunities time and time again. So we're left with this. We're left with a ragtag group of players, bunch of misfits, most of them, don't have any strength in depth. Keep on employing managers who don't even try and play the best tools in the toolbox and get them playing as a unit, at least try and get the opposition. And then we're wondering why we're struggling year in, year out, see every frigging season. We know there's the ownership issue. We know there's the recruitment issue. We know there's players from previous managers there. We know all that. We know that he's got to wait until January to get new players in. But, you've got to ask, well, which players can he get in? But that does not hide the fact, that doesn't not cover over the way our manager sets up our team and the psychology, the mentality that he's instilling into our players to be defensive first and not go on the front foot, not even counter-attacking with any purpose. You set up with your defenders, right? You set up Juve, Wan-Bissaka, Mavropanos, and Todibo. Todibo, I thought, had a decent game, right? Again, you thought he had a decent game. But then it just looked disjointed all in midfield and up front. There was nobody clearly on the left. Then you bring Guillem on in the second half and say, well, why don't you start with Guillem? At least he's there. At least he's got a presence going forward. Stop Paqueta moving about. Your best position is supposedly is number 10. Well, frigging stay in number 10 position then. Don't wander about all over the place if you're not going to be productive. If you're only going to be productive in the number 10 role, centre the park a little bit more advanced, then do that. Fernandez, Potts, Magassa, they were trying, but they can only do what they can do if the rest of the players are on song. And if they're not, we're going to be looking at them as well and saying, well, what's going on? Wilson just didn't really have the game. He didn't have the service. There was nothing there. We're expecting miracles from players who are just not able to get into a game. And we're expecting miracles from players who are playing with a game plan that just is not going to work. If Liverpool were the Premier League champions and they were playing great football and they're winning every game, then you could say, right, okay, look, we got a tough one here. We got a tough one. But they're not. And now we've got to go. We've got Man United. We've got Brighton who are on song. I said this a few weeks ago. If we get more than, 10 points, if we get sort of 17, 18 points by Christmas, that's relegation form. We're right in it. We're just out of the relegation spot. I see Burnley and I see Leeds with more fight than us. Even Wolves were having a go yesterday against Villa. And we have nothing. But, we can talk about Paqueta, what he shouldn't have done. He shouldn't have done it. But more than that, he shouldn't be playing a player if he just doesn't deliver as well. So, Bowen, we talked about captaincy. We talked about strong leaders. He's just not that. We know it. And he's not even leading by example right now because the confidence is gone. He's shot. We need to do something drastic. Nuno needs to do something drastic here. He needs to change it up completely. It might be a bit of a godsend that Paqueta's going to be out of it for a little bit. Get some better structure in. Get some players in there with purpose who want to go forward. And let's see how we go. But it was there for the taking. They were the wounded animal. They were bleeding. The guts are out. All we need to do, we need to just be looking down on them, give them a kick in. That's all we needed to do. Kick them in the bollocks a little bit. That's all we needed to do. And we just didn't do it. In fact, we were giving them a helping hand. It's like, go on, son. Yeah, I'll help you out. No, that's not what you do. It's like the team who gets criticised for, knocking 6 or 10 past a crappier team. They say, no, you shouldn't really do that. No, you get as many goals as you can. If you put 20 past them, you put 20 past them. What's the matter with you? That's what it takes. You win. You get as many goals as you can, best goal difference you can over a season. You don't help the opposition to beat you. You don't help the opposition to come back at you in the second half. And this is what this manager is doing. The more I talk about it, the more frustrated I'm going to get, the more angry I'm going to get. Because you can see what the problem is. You can see where the issues are. Paqueta let himself down 100%, but he's not the reason why we lost the game. We lost the game because of what Nuno's tactics were and the players, how they delivered under those tactics. The way he set up, the way players underperformed, the way, Bowen totally underperformed again, the way there's no leadership on the field. The way Nuno was slow to react with Paqueta not getting him off. And the players around him not stopping him as well. It's just, it beggars belief. It beggars belief how we've got something that's so clear for everybody to see. And it appears that our manager, as well as maybe some of the players, are just not seeing it. On the day that we lost the legend who was all about the commitment, all about the team, all about the club, all about putting in performances, all about no nonsense, get in there. That is the biggest betrayal of a memory, in my opinion. The way you act, getting yourself sent off on a day like that. And that's the betrayal. And I feel betrayed as a fan. You know, I know I made it short yesterday, so unfortunately I couldn't get there. I was working. I've been working all weekend. Couldn't get out of work. Couldn't get out of my job to go there. But do you know what? I would have come away from there feeling absolutely furious if I'd seen that. I was watching it live on my phone, and then, but you know, sometimes you're doing other stuff and you might miss it, and then you try and watch it again later. And I was watching the highlights and watching the match of the day, and but you just, the more you watch it, the more you kind of feel it goes beyond disappointment. It just goes beyond. It's the lowness in the whole thing. You just feel low. You just feel, what is this all about? On a day that we lost Billy Bonds, the legend that he is, and everything that he stood for, and the way he played, and the way he led us as a club, as a captain, as a manager. But, you know, legends don't always have it their own way. Of course they don't, right? They all have poor performances. They all have bad days at the office. You know, he had his troubles being manager as well, of course. You know, we went down twice. We came back up twice. You know, there was issues with Harry Redknapp. You know, there was, you know, just because it was a legend, don't always believe that everything is fantastic. But overwhelmingly, what he stood for, there was nothing in that performance yesterday. There was nothing in those tactics that emulated that man, that emulated the way he played and the way he wanted us to play. There was nothing in that. And that is unforgivable. And that is shameful. And Paqueta, wow, why do we even need him here? Why do we even need him here if you're not going to deliver, if you're going to be inconsistent and you're going to pull off crap like that? Why? Tell me why. Convince me. You've got to convince me here, because I just do not see it. And I've been saying it for weeks and weeks. If any player doesn't perform, is totally inconsistent, and it's more trouble than they're worth, what's the frigging point in having them there? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If you like what I do here, keep on watching, and I'll catch you again. Bye now.